It's Suze from Smarting Coaching. Just wanted to share another little tidbit of, wisdom with you today. So I want to touch on something, and can be triggering. I want to talk to you today about triggers. We get triggered a lot, and I think we get triggered a lot more than we need to, and I don't know that we truly understand the gift that being triggered gives us. So I just want to touch on that a little bit today. And I'm going to give it an overarching label of my year of being triggered. And I'm going to do a few little separate things on this to just explain a few things of what happened to me. Now, I just want to at the beginning of this say, I share things about my life and examples, and I also talk a lot in metaphors. You'll know when I'm doing whichever. But I do that because that's how I learn, and that's how I get the gist of what people are talking about. And by people giving examples of whatever it is that they're talking about, whether it be a personal example or whatever sort of an example it is, it helps me to understand and think about and widen my view of how that could be in my life, or how I could use that in my life, or whatever. So do you get what I mean? So if you don't like metaphors and personal stories, then perhaps this isn't the channel for you. But if you do, welcome. Glad to spend some time with you. So my year of being triggered, 2022, oh my goodness. That was a year for the books. That was a year where I would have to say I put myself in a position to be triggered almost weekly. And I didn't realise that for a long time. But I was constantly being triggered about any number of things, and it wouldn't matter what was happening, there would be something in conversations that would trigger me. And I didn't know how to deal with triggers at that stage very well. But I let it go, and I'm thinking, oh, you don't run away from your triggers, they're there to help you, But it was triggering so much, and in the end, after about 9 months of this almost weekly triggering, it got too much for me, and I actually got sick with COVID and got flattened, absolutely flattened, and everything was really weird for a little while for me. I didn't have intuition, I didn't know I couldn't connect with anything. I felt like I lost my connection with God, I felt like I lost my connection with my higher self or my body. I felt like everything was in chunks and pieces. And so it's taken me a full probably 12 months to get well again, because after having COVID, I had a few, every month I would get sick. But looking back now at it, I was clearing stuff, and I was flattened because I wasn't dealing with what was being triggered. I was just coming up for another trigger, coming up for another thing. And I got so full of stuff that it was time to actually do the work and integrate things and go deeper with all the triggers. So when you get triggered, what does that mean? Everyone's saying, oh, you made me feel this, or you did that and I felt this, and you've got to fix me, or you've got to fix it, or don't do that. When you get triggered to somebody, right? But a trigger is actually a sign for you to say, hey, there's something unresolved in there, or something within you. Maybe it's been pushed down, maybe it's been subconscious, it's coming to the conscious, to your conscious mind for you to deal with right now in some way, shape or form. And I've just got to say on that, there's lots of side notes in this because it's a big topic, but you won't necessarily always deal with everything in that trigger at once. Healing is a spiral. And sometimes you'll just take off layers each time, because if you dealt with everything all at once, you may be flattened. And that's not what we want. So your body will let you know with releasing. And if you get signs to release stuff and signs to deal with stuff and you're not listening, don't be surprised if you get flattened by a sudden illness or a cold out of nowhere, or you can't get out of bed and you don't know what's happening and your body's aching. Now, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not saying that's not medical, but I'm just saying to you what I've experienced. And I know now that if I'm not dealing with stuff, or if I'm not speaking up, my voice goes and I get flattened. And it's like, Suze, you've had enough hints, you're going to deal with this now. So I had to start dealing with some of the triggers, and it was brilliant. And I'll make some separate things to talk about a few specific issues that were triggered that I resolved, because I resolved some of them quite quickly in the end when I sat with them, because I had so many trigger points come through that I actually had more layers of information to deal with all at once, because I'd ignored the initial trigger. So I want to say to you now, this is a time of the year where triggers can be huge, and it can be for all sorts of reasons. And I don't suggest staying in places that are constantly triggering you all the time, because it is exhausting and you will end up feeling like you're crazy, and you may get sick, and you may just end up spewing all sorts of stuff out onto people that really don't need to be done. But I just want to say, take note of what's triggering you, and it may not be okay to do it at that point, but at some point make a note, and at some point sit down and think about, why did I have such a reaction to that thing? Some of the things that trigger me are seeing people who are acting like I used to act, who are doing things like I used to do them, that I don't do anymore. And a lot of that for me was seeing that, recognizing that in them, feeling like, oh my gosh, I used to do that. Why did I do that? This is how it looked to other people. So I've had to deal with a lot of that. And it's a thing. It's just a thing to deal with, to make peace with. It was another thing that came to my Kumbaya meeting and had the talking stick and had a bit to say. So I'll make some other smaller videos specific to specific things that have happened to me. Why? Because I want to give examples to you of how it can come in, how we can ignore it, what happens when we do ignore it, and what happens when we actually stand and face it. Because sometimes the running away from things, or the pretending things aren't happening, or the padding down of stuff, is actually uses more energy and is more exhausting and more scary and more fearful than standing, when you want to run away, than standing there and actually facing the stuff. That's one big thing, the takeaway that I've learned after years of running from lots of things. So stay tuned. Over the next week or so, I'll make a couple more of these. If you're interested, please come along. I'm also over on Instagram as Smarting Coaching, so if you want to come over there and give me a follow and see little bits and pieces that I share over there. When things come to me, I just share them. Sometimes it's in the morning when I'm having my coffee in bed, and bed hair, I'm trying to bring bed hair back. Or maybe it's when I'm out and about. I get quite a lot of things when I'm driving, and I stop to share those with people because I just think sometimes that might be what somebody needs. And my motto with Smarting Coaching is, if I can help just one person today, then that's what I'm here for. Okay, so once again, thanks for spending some time with me. Feel free to share this with anyone that you think might enjoy, get benefit from, or feel a bit better about themselves from watching something like this. And I look forward to spending some more time with you soon. Take care and have an amazing day. And above all, be kind to yourself. Love you.